All right. So here we go. We're starting off on this podcast journey for Urban Home Yoga Studio. We're going beyond the mat. So the idea for today's episode is to really look at, again, looking at our experience of 13 to 18 years and what have we heard really like people think of yoga? What holds them back? You know, what they think yoga is and what's not true about some of these myths that, you know, come around yoga and what is actually true, because some of it can feel like it's very true. So start us off. Think about, you know, what do you think? What's the first one that comes to mind?
I just think people don't know what yoga is because it's such a big, broad thing. What is yoga?
Yeah.
And whether it's going back to, I don't know, this image of, cut that. I can't remember.
Well, is it kind of like, are you saying more like the marketing side of yoga? Like, so what we see in magazines, what we see as someone that looks incredibly peaceful, right? They're in this yogic pose of Zen, or in a headstand, or, you know, like how it's being portrayed. Maybe that also can kind of contribute to a lot of our thoughts on what yoga is, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do think social media is dangerous, full stop.
Yeah.
Giving very false images, people leaving these wonderful lives where actually all they're doing is taking thousands of pictures to get that perfect still.
Yeah.
Which is the same for, you know, when we see all these bendy, flexible bodies, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. And that already is, well, I can't do yoga.
I think it puts a pressure on yoga teachers as well, because we are leading the next generation of teachers. Every year that we do our teacher training program, it's, you know, we're mentoring and educating the next level, you know, like the next generation of teachers. And it is just like you would if you were a parent, you know, parenting the next generation. You just worry about the images, I think, and how it can also limit a yoga teacher's journey because she needs to be strong enough or she needs to show these certain poses. And that's one section of it. And then you take it back to, I think, beginners and people coming into the practice and them feeling the same way. So I just think that we're starting off, right, just thinking that we're not good enough already. And I think that that's a big thing.
Yeah. And I think that is very true. But I think, you know, that aspect of like, I don't do yoga, because nobody really knows what yoga is. So it's easy to say, well, like, well, I don't do it. I don't like yoga. I'm not going to go to yoga. Yeah. Or you get this image of somebody sat meditating for like an hour. So it's just slow. It's boring. There's no point me doing that. Yeah. So it is just...
I mean, there are a lot of myths right there, you know, like, is it slow? Is it... So, okay, well, we can start with slow. Yoga is really slow. Like, what have you seen that's true and that's not true, you know?
As I said in the previous podcast, that I thought yoga was too slow because I hadn't found the right yoga for me. Yeah. I hadn't educated myself. As we know, Sarah read thousands of books before she got
did a lot
yoga.
Of reading.
A lot of research.
But that was my go-to.
So I hadn't, you know, thought about anything. That I was just going to yoga. Yeah. So I would have given up because I thought yoga's too slow. Yeah. Where now I'm more educated and we can help educate people through Urban Om when they come to classes. We can guide them into the different slower pace classes. Yeah. This one's where you hit just here, or you want to do your chin stands, your arm balances, come to power 2, you know, fill your boots, have a great time. So I think for people to say I don't do it because it's too slow, then I would argue they've not gone to the right style of class.
I agree.
So you've got yin practice, which is very slow. You've got restorative, really, really slow.
Yeah, yoga nidra, almost sleep. Yeah. You're almost you're literally just sleeping.
That's the best bit. Yoga nidra, you know, that is literally translating into yogic sleep. So,
and some people love it. They really just get into it. Like, but some very uncomfortable to just stay there and sleep, like with the literally, like, in, you know, you're lying down with a bolster and a blanket and eye pillow. And but some people like that and some people don't, right?
Because that is their yoga. That is what they need. And, you know, the benefits of yoga nidra, yoga sleep if you are like sleep deprived, stressed, anxious,
absolutely.
That's you
exactly
are getting all of these benefits. I mean, fact on fact, I probably can't remember, but is it something like an hour of nidra is equivalent to like 4 hours of good sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
So, that has its benefits. So to say it's too slow, if you went to yoga nidra, you're right. But there are other forms. Yeah. So it is finding that right one. So that is something you can cross off as an excuse.
Yeah.
Yoga is not too slow.
No, not if you go to a power vinyasa,
but then that
hot yoga.
But that can turn it onto its side. You can have people saying yoga's too hard.
Yes, exactly that. So now I think that that's where I came in, because I didn't, like we had said in our first episode, and we were talking about our practices, I didn't move my body. I did not have an athletic background. I didn't have, a gym background. So when I went, and the studio that I had come across was more of a power hot yoga style. So actually that was really hard for me, because my stamina wasn't there. Like I wasn't a runner. I was actually coming off the deep end, but I just knew I needed to do, I feel the opposite is medicine. So for me, like, get me a bolster, and I will lie down all day. No, I mean, obviously I was like, I wasn't like lazy, but for the most part, I really, I was like slower to move, I was just really paced. I was a very paced person. And so all of a sudden,
she was always reading.
I was constantly reading. Exactly that. So now I've got this teacher that's like trying to push power inside of me, trying to ignite this fire that I was like, I don't want to move. I don't want motivation. But it was the right medicine for me. So I think for me, it was the right opposite, because it was something had to stimulate me. I was just very understimulated. So I needed something to, now I'm overstimulated. So I go back. But I think yoga is both, right? And it's just really trying to find, first of all, what you like.
Yeah.
What you like. If you like it slow, you like it fast. But then what do you need?
Yes.
And so, so maybe the movers need that relaxation now to create balance. And I liked relaxation. I was up for it. So I needed to move.
You could do that already.
Yeah, I was good.
She was the pro.
I was really good at restorative. Get me a bolster and I will lie down there for 10 minutes, no problem. But I didn't want to move. I didn't want to, for whatever reason. It was uncomfortable, etc.
But that's the beauty of the practice. Now that kind of I've evolved, I've moved, different parts of my life.
Yeah.
There was times where I needed this outlet, eventually like vinyasa, like you crazy stuff, just have a go. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Where now I value yin. Yeah. My body needs this time to slow down.
Yeah.
So I think eventually we realize there is a bit for everybody.
Ages and stages.
We can gravitate from one. What do I need today? And that is that coming back to that self-inquiry, because we're getting more connected to ourselves and our body. So
and the feedback. What do I need? Exactly. And being honest with ourselves as well. If we are really, or not knowing, sometimes again, it's still a process. Like as much as we've been doing yoga, we still are trying to figure it out, because now that I'm moving so much, I don't realize that I need to go back to the old ways and the way I started, and I need to slow down again. And so it's so, just like anything, you're going to lose balance really quickly. It's really hard to maintain balance and understanding. But I love that yoga is a little bit of everything. And I think that really busts that myth, because I think if yoga is too slow, that there's places to go where it's not slow, and vice versa. And that's why I really love, at the studio, we'll teach. That's why we're calling it the signature class of power and restore, because you are getting this movement in the first half and this restorative in the second half. And I just feel like that's such a great, if you're not sure what you like, that mixed level class is really a good one.
And it's highlighting as well that at Urban Om, so power doesn't mean like charging around. It just means that you're moving.
Exactly.
You're going to lift your heart rate.
Exactly.
And then you're going to bring it down
and relax and and hopefully drift and go into a deeper relaxation where it feels really soothing.
So it's kind of then saying another myth that people often say is, I don't have the space.
Yeah.
I don't have room.
Yeah.
Yoga itself is quite contained.
Yeah, it's so good. You just need your mat.
You can get on your mat.
And that's your space. That's all you need.
Yeah. Arms can go forward.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to have a whole room. You could set up before you go to bed, lay your mat out.
Yeah.
You know, yoga is movement, basically. So you can get up in the morning, you can start kind of releasing off your wrists, circling for your ankles, a nice little stretch. That is yoga.
Exactly. So how do you integrate yoga? So for example, and again, you do need a level of comfort, you know, you do need a level of comfort and understanding yoga. Or you read the books and you figure it out, or you read the articles and it tells you what to do, you know. But is it as teachers now, so we're looking at it as a teacher point of view, like how do you incorporate yoga into your life? Because I think for me, it's not an actual practice. It's not a 20-minute get on my yoga mat. But now what I've started doing is after desk work, I've got the yoga mat right there and I just go into like a supported back bend with a bolster just because I've been like this for a long time. So I just kind of open up backwards. And that's really the extent of my practice unless I'm in a yoga studio and they're, you know, unless I go and book for class. Yeah. But for the most part, that's actually my practice right now in the day-to-day living, you know.
Yeah. But that is kind of bringing your practice to life though, isn't it? And so me, if I've been sitting at desk, I probably do very similar to you without realize I'm doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm taking my arms back and I'm lifting up because I know that if I've been doing this, I need to do this.
It just feels more comfortable. Like it just feels.
Or if at home I'm sat on the sofa, I might sit cross-legged.
So I do that too. So I've realized that because we'll talk about this, right? So the more you sit in chairs, the more shorter these muscles get. And of course we're teaching it. So one of my things is definitely sitting on, because yoga's living your life back on the floor again and opening up body parts. And I know it's like, well, I can't do yoga because my body hasn't opened up that way. But actually we didn't start this way. And it's been because we've been doing it for a while and we know it so well, of course, I will do the same. I'll sit in a position where I feel like one leg feels more stretched than the other. Oh, actually, let me sit in a different way.
Because I do jog. I don't run. I say I run.
It used to be running. Now it's jogging.
When people say like, "Oh, you're a runner." No. I'm a jogger. Actually, I'm a fast walker. No, I jog. Without realizing, you know, I'm here and I've got my leg, and I'm like, "Oh, that feels so much better," because my hamstrings are going like, "Oh, I need some work."
Yeah. Do you know? But it's strange though. Like, I mean, we sit there and we're like, you know, because you'll tease me all day long about my flexibility, but actually that is a funny thing we've been living and breathing this for a while, right? But actually people will feel tight, but not know what to do, right? Like they're feeling it. They may either be aware of it or they're not aware of it. But ultimately the poses that we live and breathe to open up our hamstring or to get our shoulders, like it's not second nature. So actually you do need a guide and you do need to go to class and you do, if that's what you're trying to learn, or you do need to open up a book and read about it. But I think
got pictures in the book.
with pictures and a step by step. But I think we've been living and breathing it. So we know what to do. But actually I teach classes where I'm saying, if any of this is like hitting home, take it as homework. Like if you like, I was in class, I was teaching, and one of the students was like, "Oh, can I do this at home?" I was like, "Yes, do it at home." And it was just one pose and it was just forward folding and opening up the shoulders. Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, that really like it hit or targeted what was bothering her." And she's like, "Oh, can I do that at home?" I was like, "Yeah, just remember that one and just do that. Like, don't put any more pressure. Just have that as homework. If that works for you and you're seeing that it's actually opening up its stiff area, just do that." And that's the extent of yoga sometimes, you know, like if you don't have space and you don't have time, then actually
it's kind of functional movement really, isn't it, as well? So if we think that if you've got the space or limited space, cat-cow,
seated cat-cow as well, right? Just being able to move the body and the spine.
And rounding and kind of pulling the chest forward, so extending and flexing the spine. You know, adding a little twist, a little lateral stretch. All of a sudden, you've worked your spine in so many different directions.
Ways.
And it actually feels really good.
Yeah,
you can do that sitting at your desk, but it's nice to get away from the desk. So I don't think space is always a reason to say, I can't go to yoga, I don't have the space. Another one that leads on to that often, I don't have time to do yoga.
And that's the thing. I think time and space goes a long way. I think our bodies are really tired, stressed, in the same position over and over again, that actually just moving it in the opposite direction for just 5 seconds or 5 breaths it's an incredible game changer.
And it's not kind of thinking, oh, I've got to do yoga for an hour. So when I first started teaching, I mean,
that's a luxury for us sometimes.
I know, right? But I remember it was a different teacher at the time. They were all about, practicing. I was like, I find it really hard. The boys were quite young at this point. I was a single mum to 2 boys. And I thought, I'll get up early. They got up early.
I know. Mine does too. As soon as I get out of bed, the little one follows me.
You're kind of like, well, this isn't really helping, because I'm trying to do something to make myself more patient, to make myself kind of like get through the day.
Yeah, and it's frustrating then.
And then so I'm getting up at 6 o'clock. They're waking up at 6 o'clock. I'm like, no. And it's like, well, you're not a very good teacher if you're not practicing yourself an hour every day. And I was broken by that comment.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, no, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
That is very... I don't know quite the words, but I just felt really, really off-put.
Yeah.
I just felt defeated.
Yeah,
I was like, how am I going to do this? And then it was only over time and speaking to other people and teachers that it's not about doing this solid asana physical practice. It is, like, say, just moving when you need to move.
Yeah.
Giving yourself a bit of space away from people, knowing to walk away and not to react. So bring in other parts of our yoga that we will have been built on. Exactly.
Because yoga is, and that's the hard bit, is of course we're not expecting those comments in a yogic environment, but only if we embody what yoga is past the physical. Like if we're not taking that same mindset of exercise and achievement, and actually taking the real philosophy into the yoga, and knowing that the real philosophy behind yoga is that, what is it? It's time, it's breathing, it's, so same thing. I didn't have 1 hour to do a physical yoga practice in between the children and giving birth and things like that. So it was,
imagine Sarah giving birth. Hang on a minute.
Like
halfway through practice.
Do yoga. But I mean, you learn these practices to do it while you're in labor, or you'll learn practices to do after to help, strengthen your body. But it's not possible for maybe 2 years, if you're lucky. So I think that my practice at that time was just breathing. It was really just breathing, because it was now I know this. Again, I didn't know it at the time, or the level of it, but deep abdominal breaths were helping me tone up. Yeah. It has a big thing with your, everything that you go through with birth trauma, actually. Like your breath is really incredible for healing on the inside.
It's helping your pelvic floor.
Exactly. Pelvic floor and blood flow and calming, being calm enough to sit. And, I breastfed my kids. So, being able to have the patience to sit there, but again, I was the type of person that would sit anyway. So, but then I turned into a mover. So now I'm like, I don't know how to sit anymore. So I think yoga is definitely beyond the mat. It's off of the mat. It's not that 1 hour practice. And I know that we will get those comments, but it's still because the overlay of what yoga really is, the philosophy behind it, hasn't hit home yet. And I think that's why you'll get those comments,
Yeah. So that one, you have got time. Yeah. And also, how long do people, honestly, I am one of person, doom scrolling.
Oh gosh.
On their phone. I can easily get sucked in.
And here's the thing, not just anything, but looking at other yoga teachers doing their practice while you're just watching them.
Oh, they're great. That could be 15 minutes. That's
absolutely.
15 minutes away from that noise.
Absolutely.
Do a practice, do your own stretches.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at all these people going like, oh my God, I'm not going to do a practice because they're amazing. Yeah. Look at them holding that handstand.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not there yet in my practice. And again, we've got that pressure just as people are coming into yoga and getting to know yoga and feeling that they've got this pressure that they're not flexible enough, that at every stage, this mindset comes in and says that we're not good enough. We're not good enough as beginners. We're not good enough as intermediates. We're not good as advanced. We're not good as teachers. And I think that that's modern day living in, just modern day living and modern day, anxieties and modern day thinking, like these voices in our head, which have always been there, I'm sure, but exasperated by being able to watch other people do these perfect shots,
That they had one shot after an hour of trying to get that shot.
Yeah.
So, it is reality versus what we are actually seeing.
Yeah. So that's, these are myth busters as well, but it actually shows like the truth of how we all have these limited beliefs and we're all human and we're all thinking the same thing. My mindset came differently. My mindset was I really didn't like competition from a very early age. And again, it could have been the Eastern culture because Eastern culture is not bred into competition. It's collectivist, right? So collectivist is family, like family first, you're together, your strength is together. So that idea was that I wasn't not an individual, but for the most part, it wasn't about competitiveness. So I actually my anxiety would come in because schools would have these competitions, spelling bee competitions and, whatever they are. And of course there was pressure on, being a person that does well, like, academically, because, that's where the nerd stuff comes in and the book reading. But then you've got to compete mentally. So maybe it's not a physical competition that I grew up with, but it was definitely a mental competition, that being smart enough, being, educated enough, things like that. And I think that that's the main thing was I really pushed back from that rat race really quickly and maybe didn't do myself a disservice by not pushing myself academically. But either way, I needed to push back because it wasn't my thing. And I just learned very early on that I was a softer, slower paced person, which is why relaxation was so easy for me in a sense that like I could go and sit on a bolster for a while. But that's what actually developed my physical practice because I was not looking around, because I was in an environment where people were doing 10 times more than I was doing. And there was a little bit of competition based on, again, our mindsets coming into a yoga studio. But because I was reading a lot about the philosophy and I was naturally not a person that liked competition. And this is good because, we're going to have lots of different audiences out there that, appeal to different stories. For me, I loved yoga so much. I loved how it made me feel that if I started to look around, I was going to stop doing yoga. And so thank God I was not looking around. Thankfully, it was something that I learned how to put my blinkers on at a very early age because I didn't like competition and it made me feel really stressed out. So I was able to do that in the studio. And I think so sometimes it is relaxing and sometimes it is taking those voices out of your head. But for me, not competing has been really useful, not wanting to watch other people doing really well and just really focusing, because that's part of the yoga philosophy anyway. They're like, don't look at other people, just focus on your own practice. And it does work. It's hard to do it. But for me, I learned really early to do that. And I think that that's why the practice was easy to develop, because I would have either pushed myself too much and injured myself, or I would have stopped. Those are the realities, So yeah.
So another myth that we're going to get also thinking about social media being, I can't go to yoga because I'm too big.
Yeah.
I'm too skinny. Yeah. Works both ways. And you know what? We're all unique in our body. And, yoga wasn't really, I don't know, maybe isn't as suitable for Western bodies, maybe with bigger hips.
Western living. Yeah. I guess, maybe in general, yes, yoga is harder for us in the Western world or in Western bodies. And and we say that, but the East is going just in that same direction now, but screen living or TV living or driving a lot, that kind of living. So I think we don't live on the floor. We do live in chairs. We do live a little higher up.
But we've, that's kind of evolved, isn't it? And if you think of how when we have little children, we now put them into chairs.
Yeah.
We don't leave them to sit on the floor because, we need them to be comfortable. Put them into these little chair things.
Yes.
I mean, they've really evolved since mine were young, but mine used to have like those little rocking chairs.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? They're quite happy sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
They were quite happy starting to develop their spinal strength.
Yeah.
Where we've kind of gone like, no, you sit here because you need to be comfortable.
It's a bacteria culture though, too, right? Don't you like, so for example, feet. I mean, obviously being in shoes, you're going to get cuts and scrapes if you're walking outside, without shoes. But ultimately also it's a bacteria factor and cleanliness. And of course that kind of said to get them off of the floor.
We need bacteria.
But I think that's the thing. That's exactly it. Do you know? And I think that we've done ourselves a disservice perhaps.
Totally. 2-second rule.
2-second rule. Come into yoga, you get really relaxed.
It's like, So there is no reason really to think that, your body is not able to do yoga.
But I think you're right. I do think that the myth and that limiting belief is it feels like our bodies don't move like that. Mm-hmm. And so thinking of yoga poses were called certain animals and things because they would watch a cobra. Like all they had as reference for Sanskrit 2,000 years ago. It's not all they had as reference, but what kind of inspired the movement is, I'm not really sure about pigeon, but cobra makes sense, or Hanuman, split pose. Like they would see this and they would name it some kind of animal movement. But actually nowadays, the biggest thing that has really hit the fan was, what's it called? It's like, I can't remember, but it's basically, animal movement again. So you'll do this in workshops and stuff like for handstand and headstand, but they call it, it's, you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mine's
primal.
That's
primal movement.
Yes.
Yeah. So primal movement is like getting back into this, like hop like a frog, walk like it, and like all fours animal.
See, I've tried that and that was really out my comfort zone.
Yeah. And it makes sense though, but actually primal movement was kind of mimicked yoga in some ways because it was like you're moving your body like,
but it's all moving organically, really.
Organically and different, but it doesn't feel organic because our bodies have changed in so many different ways. Coming back to that original point is that my body doesn't feel like it's flexible enough or it's strong enough. But yes, of course, our modern day living, I think, has weakened our core and, shallow breathing.
Yeah.
All of these things of, we're maybe more stimulated mentally, so we can't even think about our breathing as much, like if we're on screens a lot. So it really, some of these limiting beliefs, yes, there's like a basis of why they're there, but actually that's what yoga's there for though. Like the bodies would get tight 2,000 years ago without screens.
Yeah.
And it was always like a medicine.
Well, that's what it was really before, wasn't it? You know, if you had an ailment, you would go to your guru and they would say, do this. And you'd be like,
they would prescribe poses like physio.
So you wouldn't go and get tablets. It would be like, you need to do this stretch. You need to do that stretch. And
for however long and until you start seeing the benefits of all of it.
So you would do it. You wouldn't go there and say like, oh, you need to touch your toes 5 times a day. Well, I can't. It's like, well, of course you can't because you've not tried. You've not done it yet.
Exactly.
You know?
And you haven't done it consistently enough.
And I think the consistency is the key.
Absolutely.
So I think the biggest one always is when I've spoken to people, come to yoga, I can't, I'm not flexible. And that one, it's kind of, it is an eye roll. It's a bit like, I feel like saying like, find something else. Think of something different.
Yes.
Of course, you're not going to be, well, not of course, you probably aren't going to be flexible. And that's why you're coming. Start off small, that consistency, show up. I've seen people who've come to practice doing a forward fold and there's nowhere to go. And you know what? It's not a case of I can't stretch their legs. What I can do is think about mechanics of a body. Okay, let's try and just get some movement into your hips. Maybe your back's a little bit tight. Use a belt. So we can work around things.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, adjustments,
modifications, props. finding the right class that uses those things, or maybe slows the class down so it's not a fast class, so that you have time to use the props and you've got that time to really open up. And
I think then if it is that right class, so at Urban On, we've got our foundation class. So foundation, building the building blocks to
and we use props and foundation for that reason, for alignment.
So then you can slow it down. You know, the teacher's there to help you find what props you need. And all of a sudden being, I'm not flexible, it becomes like, I just needed to do this, sit on a brick, and I've got a bit of movement.
And it's so reinforcing. It just makes you feel like, oh, wow, my body can do that. Because you'll hear that with downward facing dog. Like some people will say like, oh, this is really taxing of the upper body because the legs are so tight, right? From shoes and sitting and things like that. But I've heard people say like, my third practice and I can get my heels down a little more. And that just is so amazing because I think we really think our bodies can't do stuff. But actually our bodies can if we give it the right environment. I do think heat helps. It's lovely that we at the studio, we've got infrared. Of course, we've also got on-demand classes and things like that. But ultimately the heat does help. So if anyone is going to a tropical country or lives in a nice hot country, maybe open the windows and do some yoga. But like, I think that really makes it less uncomfortable and helps us get there a little bit quicker. Not that we're trying to get there fast, but it helps us feel like we're not going to get bored or tired of the process.
It's because we're cold a lot of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, we're naturally here all the time.
Yeah, like this.
So our muscles are then like cramping up.
Especially in cold environments. Like we're in the UK, so we're going to feel that more.
So if you're going to practice where is the infrareds, which is basically the sun shining down on you.
No UV rays.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that feels so nice.
So good.
You're so relaxing, your body's relaxing and you're just feeling that, this is just me, that pure joy of like, I'm so warm, this is amazing, I can move.
I know heat therapy is a thing though, right? Like, I mean, we'll use it if we have like a stiff shoulder, we've got heat packs for a reason. Like heat is so relaxing. And if our bodies are feeling very Western, physically, they're not moving as much, we're in cold environments, we're on screens a lot, and then yoga just feels torturous, then, warm yoga is definitely a key,
Compulsory.
Yeah, compulsory. Like you're not giving it an option. Whether you like the heat or not, come in.
So we can cross that off. If you're saying you're not flexible, we don't take that.
Nope, we don't take that.
We don't take that. That's off of our list.
Yeah. And that also goes with body shapes as well. So sometimes if you're really, if you're feeling really big and you're feeling like you're not moving enough, actually the props are going to help you. And sometimes if you don't have enough body fat, sometimes it's painful, like the, bone on bone compression. Yeah. So how do we make it softer? How do we make it more comfortable? But I think it doesn't matter the body shape and the body size. The idea is that, like you say, functional movement, the ability to get there in a comfortable way.
Yeah.
So I know that these things can be harder to get to a yoga class, but again, coming back down to the right teacher, the right style, the right setup, what is the right class for you to get started in, you know? So any other thought of spirituality and religion? That's a big thing. Well, okay, I'm the worst person because again, I was all about the spirit, but I wasn't all about the physical. So for me, I think it was fine that it was a connected practice. It was fine that it was talking about connecting back with you because I was all for that stuff,
well, that used to freak me out.
So tell me more about that.
I think because I got into it through a physical practice.
Yeah.
So, that is the beauty. Get into it how you want to.
Yeah.
Stop where you want to. If you just want to use it for physical practice, fine. The magic is happening, whether you like it or not.
Exactly, it is.
Whether you believe it, it is happening. And that's why you keep coming back.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely fine. But, I love to hear about all the spiritual side of it. Do I teach that? Not really. Yeah. It's not authentic to me.
No, but I'm not very traditional at teaching the spirit stuff. I think the spirit stuff for me is that I feel like the nature side, the calming side, the connected side, that's the spirit for me. It's like feeling connected to people. I love connection. I love connecting with people. Like I don't really like to talk about the small talk for too long. I just want to get into it. Like, tell me your life. I want to hear your life story. But again, it started when I was young. I liked hearing people's stories, like what they were into. So for me, I think spirit means just connecting to people. But again, it just could be the culture that I grew up in. And it could be that, we had that collectivist culture and there was like, we all knew about each other and what we're doing and things like that. And it wasn't very individualistic. Yeah. So maybe that's the spirit for me, but I think
it probably is.
I don't teach traditional stuff in particular, spiritual stuff in particular. I do love the stories where they talk about, because we do talk, we do go to the basis of Bhagavad Gita, right? When we're doing our teacher training, and the stories of bravery and the stories of warriorhood and ethics and the Buddha and how he was trying to find balance. I love that kind of stuff. I really do, but that's what I would consider spirit, is really like finding, I guess it's just finding yourself, finding ethics. What is integrity? Like how do you live by your morals and values and philosophy? I think that's my spirit, is the philosophy, which doesn't feel.
Yeah, but I think that's where it can get lost a little bit in translation, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's because like you're describing what, your idea of what the spiritual side or the spirit side is. Yeah. But if you have got no idea of what that is, that all sounds a bit like, whoa.
What is that? Yeah. So tell me then.
And then that becomes like a cult.
Yeah, it's true.
It's, veering on a different religion. You know what? True. It's not a religion.
Yeah.
And these are just your thoughts that you're allowed to have.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think the practice gives you that inner awareness of, I can have my own thoughts as long as I'm not harming anybody else.
I love that. Yeah.
And I'm not harming myself.
Yeah, I love that.
This is my truth.
Yeah.
And I think if you're installing these morals, and these are our limbs of yoga. We're starting at the very bottom. Yeah. So, so it's not a religion. Yeah. It's not a cult.
Yeah.
Come to yoga.
Just come to yoga. I love it. So you've got this practical way. I'm like, let's just dive in. I'm ready to go more. But, I just think, once again, I do think that we create a nice balance with one another. And I do think that we can bounce off of where we've come from and how we've grown up and what has been inspiring, what has helped us, what helped us stick. What do we hear when we are there teaching new students or students that have been doing it for a few years? Yeah. I think it's great because it shows that it's not one-sided. And again, it's hard. Ambiguity and, shades of gray, I think, is really a hard thing. I think that black and white thinking is really, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more accessible. Yeah. And I just think that I am shades of gray. And I think that you've come in with this black and white. And I think that the idea is so good though, because you know what? Yeah. There's so many different people coming in and how do they find the right yoga for them if maybe they found a practical yoga and they wanted more, or they are finding it's just too intimate, too we're going right off the deep end. Let's try to find a practical yoga. Yeah. So I do think that exists. And I think that the practices we teach these different, I teach a lot more about, I'll teach the high level classes only because I love that adventure. Like people are ready for the adventure. Do you know? And I think, I'm helping them get ready for that adventure. But I think that the hot classic is a hard one for me because it's very practical. And as much as I've loved it, and actually it's helped my teaching, it's helped me become a better teacher by practicing different styles and seeing what's out there. It's just interesting that we both come from different styles, different thinking, but we're still here and we're still addicted to the practice.
It is because you are academic. I'm not academic.
Yeah.
Which is why you'll happily sit in those grays.
Yeah.
Where I like structure.
Yeah.
I would like to say that I'm probably quite practical.
Yeah.
I would hope to think I've got common sense.
Yeah, but that's important though. You need that.
Yeah. So it is kind of that I'm not the academic. I can read a book. Yeah. I can pick that book up 2 weeks later, get halfway through it and go like, oh my God, I know what's going to happen. Yes, you've read the book before. We'll watch a program. I'm like, this is really good. And Adam, my partner, he'll be like, yeah, we watched it. And was like, oh, okay. I am like little Nemo swimming around.
I was just thinking about Nemo.
A little fish that goes like, oh, hello.
Dory.
Oh, hello. Yeah. But I do retain information.
Yeah.
As in what I would suppose feel quite important.
Yeah, exactly. I think if it's delivered in the correct way and it's practical, it's going to absorb.
Reading it, I won't absorb it.
Exactly.
Like, so I learn by doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I do something, the more I remember it.
Yeah.
So teaching for me is do that pose.
Yes.
Do it.
Yes.
Feel it. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Where you would read it.
I would just like,
oh, yeah.
Well, I think it's
and then do it.
Yeah. I think, they'll talk about the pose and they'll talk about, well, I mean, of course it's practical. So if I think the thing is, I read the philosophy and I just got sold. I was like, oh, I love this. This is my stuff. So then I didn't care so much about the yoga poses and I just gave it a go because I love the philosophy so much. I think ultimately I was okay to take the adventure and the risk without knowing what it is because that was just my thing. And creativity is my thing as well. But I think that that's really important. I think that, and actually to be a better teacher, I've had to adopt a lot of the practical strategies so that there are targets and there are objectives and there are ways, because you've got to teach, you can't just go like, I mean, no one will understand what I'm saying if I hadn't brought it down and grounded what I'm trying to teach, So of course, from us being teachers and teaching students, there's so much drive to spread the practice. And I think I spread it wider by being able to teach my power twos with those guys that want to come in and they're wanting the creativity and the music and figuring out their bodies at a deep level. And I've got our foundation and, props and structure and why it lines up. I love both those sections and anything in between,
Yeah, I mean, I think I do. But then I think maybe I've learned more about myself.
Yeah.
That actually I am quite creative.
Yeah, that's a nice thing.
So my flows that I would teach are literally moving pose to pose where old me back then, I'd be like, how do people do that? Yeah. And it just actually happens.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know we need to open body parts up and things like that to keep ourselves
warm up
safe
first.
and warm throughout the practice. But it's kind of given me this kind of creative license to move.
It's so good. Yeah. But they're there. That's the thing. Like whether you're a teacher or a student, like you can be creative and go to creative classes, or you can go to structured classes and practical classes. I think they're all important. And it's amazing that yoga is going to have all of that for us. Yeah. And it's not just modern day. It's Ashtanga. It's, I think a lot of the old traditional practices had a sequence. Yeah. They had a set sequence and they had a structure and they did not do music. Yeah. So that's more modern that we now are going off the structure and we're adding music. So it is a modern day thing. But it's cool that it's still yoga. Yeah. I think it's all still yoga.
It's a big umbrella.
It's a huge umbrella. And I think one of the things I teach, the theory side, when I'm doing teacher training, is I teach them the different kinds of yoga practices out there, because there are different views on, because you'll see me come to your class when we're supposed to be really structured and I'll go off the beaten path and you're like, you've got to stay to the structure. But you don't want to disrespect teachers and classes either. And sometimes if you do a lot of yoga, if you are starting on that journey and you get confused, like, are my hands supposed to be together or apart? Because every practice has its own thing, So
for those that don't know Sarah, she just does her own thing. So we have this little pep talk when she comes into practice. Only really for the masterclass or the classics. It's
anything with structure.
Okay, Sarah. So can you just do as I say today, please? Not in a kind of demanding way, but can we not kind of do a handstand in the middle of our classic sequence?
But I don't do it in classic, but you're right. You're absolutely right. And I teach differently. It's really funny because, for the most part, we're all teaching the same thing where we're saying, if it doesn't feel comfortable, don't do it. But I'm always saying to my class, like, the community class that I'm building, it's just like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you want to do this, do this. Like, it's confusing though, because you're giving so many options, but that's what I love when I've got people that are they're like, okay, you know what? Actually, I don't want to do it, or I do want to do it. So again, we're looking at these level 3s, these power 2s, but it's great because I love giving them the option to just rest. Like, don't overdo the vinyasas if you're not feeling it. Like, I really am giving you permission to skip them out or do them.
But I think that is kind of the power of what I would say is a more advanced yogi or person who does yoga.
It's not necessarily the poses.
It's not the poses.
Nope.
To me, advanced is not somebody who can do a handstand, a headstand.
Exactly that.
It's the person that says, do you know what, today I need an extra a child's pose. And to me, it's the person that says, do you know what, I'm going to use a brick for my half moon pose today because it feels so much better in my body. Yeah. That to me is more advanced because I'm starting to listen to what my body needs.
Exactly that.
Rather than being, oh, well, it's because they can do this. Not really. Yeah. It's a person that moves wisely with their body.
That's hitting the nail on the head. It's definitely wisdom. And of course, I know it takes time to learn how to use a block and what poses do feel good and what don't feel good, but it's all part of that progression anyway. And I think it's great when studios and classes are leveled in a sense that they're like, and levels, of course, sometimes mean nothing. Like, what is level 0 to level 1? But sometimes it's nice to have just starting out, or 3 months physical fitness practice. And I think at the studio, we're also not even just saying 3 months of a yoga practice or 6 months of a yoga practice. We're saying 3, 6 months or 1 year of any kind of exercise movement, because I think that gives us more indication to what level is right for us. Yeah. And but that's what I love about that stage is that you've done enough and you're just doing what's wise for you. And I think that that's absolutely the advanced practice. It's absolutely the advanced one. Yeah.
So what are the myths?
I think, we've covered a lot of few different angles when it came to the main ones. These are the main ones that I've been hearing as well, and so I think just, more to come. I think that the next one I really want to talk about is what makes yoga different. Like, let's really go into the science of it, of course, with breath work, but I really want to talk about hormones and adrenaline and cortisol and like really talk about what we hear, like, and not in a, yoga reduces stress and inflammation. And of course, those are science-backed facts, but what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And so just like a little precursor is, when you're feeling bloated and you finish a yoga practice and all of a sudden you don't feel as bloated anymore, like these different things, like that's inflammation. And actually yoga has helped us because we're moving in different ways. What are we moving? Why are we moving it? Why is it good for de-aging? Why is it good? I think really what makes yoga different compared to CrossFit or running. And actually, and I really want to stay away from actually this idea that yoga is different from all these other forms of exercise. It's actually why yoga complements your life. Yoga stands alone, and yoga also complements the physical practices. So I think that's a great thing to dive into for our episode 3. Yeah.
More to come.
More to come. Thank you again for joining. I hope you've enjoyed being here with me. And
if you're listening, watching, then obviously any comments about anything that we've spoken about, any myths that you can think of. I mean, there's so many, but it would actually be really interesting to hear your points of views.
Yeah, I think that it's really lovely to hear what is, have we hit the target, or is there more? Is there anything else that's holding you back from doing yoga?
So what we're saying is, what is stopping you from coming?
Exactly. Tell us in the comments. Once again, thank you so much for joining. And I'm so glad that we're doing this together, and more to come.
Great.